strange that this job should be turned over to a casual visitor, in no way connected with the school. I merely assumed that Mrs. Form was a stern disciplinarian who enjoyed beating people. Somehow her appearance seemed to bear this out, and I had an immediate terrifying vision of her arriving for the occasion in full riding kit and armed with a hunting whip. To this day I can feel myself almost swooning with shame as I stood, a very small, round-faced boy in short corduroy knickers, before the two women. I could not speak. I felt that I should die if Mrs. Form were to beat me. But my dominant feeling was not fear or even resentment. It was simply shame because one more person, and that a woman, had been told of my disgusting offence. A little later, I forget how, I learned that it was not, after all, Mrs. Form who would do the beating. I cannot remember whether it was that very night that I wetted my bed again, but at any rate I did wet it again quite soon. Oh, the despair, the feeling of cruel injustice, after all my prayers and resolutions, at once again waking between the clammy sheets. There was no chance of hiding what I'd done. The grim, statuesque matron, Daphne by name, arrived in the dormitory especially to inspect my bed. She pulled back the clothes and drew herself up, and the dreaded words seemed to come rolling out of her like a peal of thunder. "Report yourself to the headmaster after breakfast." I do not know how many times I heard that phrase during my early years at Crossgates. It was only very rarely that it did not mean a beating. The words always had a portentous sound in my ears like muffled drums, or the words of the death sentence. When I arrived to report myself, Bingo was doing something or other at the long, shiny table in the anteroom to the study. Her uneasy eyes searched me as I went past. In the study, Mr. Simpson, nicknamed Sim, was waiting. Sim was a round-shouldered, curiously oafish-looking man, not large but shambling in gait, with a chubby face which was like that of an overgrown baby, and which was capable of good humour. He knew, of course, why I'd been sent to him, and had already taken a bone-handled riding crop out of the cupboard, but it was part of the punishment of reporting yourself that you had to proclaim your offence with your own lips. When I'd said my say, he read me a short but pompous lecture, then seized me by the scruff of the neck, twisted me over and began beating me with the riding crop. He had a habit of continuing his lecture while he flogged you, and I remember the words, "You dirty little boy," keeping time with the blows. The beating did not hurt. Perhaps as it was the first time, he was not hitting me very hard, and I walked out feeling very much better. The fact that the beating had not hurt was a sort of victory and partially wiped out the shame of the bedwetting. I was even incautious enough to wear a grin on my face. Some small boys were hanging about in the passage outside the door of the anteroom. "Did you get the cane?" "It didn't hurt," I said proudly. Bingo had heard everything. Instantly her voice came screaming after me. Come here this instant. What was that you said?" "I said it didn't hurt," I faltered out. "How dare you say a thing like that? Do you think that is a proper thing to say? Go in and report yourself again." This time Sim laid on in real earnest. He continued for a length of time that frightened and astonished me, about 5 minutes it seemed, ending up by breaking the riding crop. The bone handle went flying across the room. "Look what you've made me do," he said furiously, holding up the broken crop. I had fallen into a chair, weakly snivelling. I remember that this was the only time throughout my boyhood when a beating actually reduced me to tears, and curiously enough I was not even now crying because of the pain. The second beating had not hurt very much either. Fright and shame seemed to have anesthetized me. I was crying, partly because I felt that this was expected of me, partly from genuine repentance, but partly also because of a deeper grief which is peculiar to childhood and not easy to convey. A sense of desolate loneliness and helplessness, of being locked up not only in a hostile world, but in a world of good and evil where the rules were such that it was actually not possible for me to keep them.